Here's the thing everybody's forgetting about this Florida game because already, you're seeing the success that Missouri's had this season and you got to go to Neyland and all this stuff. If Florida wins this game, Georgia may not wind up going to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. I don't think that that's something people are thinking about right now because, Georgia's a 14, 15-point favorite to beat the Gators and this, that, and the other. If they don't win this game, it's a real problem on a lot of levels. It takes away all margin for error as far as the season is concerned. And you may not even get the chance to go to Atlanta. Now, nobody's thinking like that. Why? Well, because, with the exception of the 2020 game, Georgia's been in Atlanta pretty much the entire time Kirby's been the head coach. So it's not like, it's so missing Atlanta would be very odd. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's Tuesday. Georgia's getting ready for this game and all that. But, if they don't win the game, then going to Atlanta is no certainty at all. In fact, Florida at that point controls its own destiny because of wins over South Carolina and the fact South Carolina and Tennessee, and the fact South Carolina, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt, and the fact that the team they lost to has 2 losses, which is Kentucky. One of those losses was to Georgia, for the record, for the Cats, and then of course Missouri doing what they did on the road in Lexington. So this is not the same as people have always thought it's been. People, I think, well, this is not always the same as it's been lately. I mean, lately Florida's been eliminated from winning the SEC East by this time of the year. They typically lately have played LSU earlier in the year and all this stuff. That's not the case lately. Lately, that's not been the case in the past. In the past, Florida would typically play LSU earlier in the year, not later in the year. So we're coming to Jacksonville with Florida only 1 loss in league play. And if if everybody's whatever in 1 and you're the team that beat the other team with 1 loss, then you're the one that goes. I mean, that's how Tennessee played for the SEC championship in 2007. So that's the part I think people are kind of glossing over. They're, oh, how bad is Georgia going to beat Florida by and all this stuff? Hey, man, that's not how it works. I mean, you're going to need to go in, prepare well, play well, all that stuff. And when you do that, the rest of it should take care of itself. I mean, I think you saw earlier today where Matt did a video talking about Matt Rule saying that Georgia practices harder than everybody else. And I'm pretty sure that's probably close to being the absolute truth, but how can any one person know that? Now, scouts would know that, and that's who said that to Matt Rule, who was arguing that Nebraska has the second hardest practices according to that scout. But when you look at this game for Georgia, I would be pretty surprised, if not shocked, if Georgia did not beat Florida. There's a lot of reasons why. I mean, when you look at all of these categories here, and yeah, I'm big on these categories: total offense, passing offense, scoring offense, total defense, rushing defense, passing yards allowed, team passing efficiency defense, scoring defense, third down percentage offense, third down percentage defense. That's a lot of top 10 categories for Georgia. They're top 10 in all of those categories. That's a lot. I mean, that's a really good, they're exceptional at a lot of things. Florida is top 10 in 2 things: third down defense and then fourth down defense. They're very good on fourth down defense. I don't know how many times they've defended it, but they're very good on that. They're pretty good punting too. So there's a lot of stuff that, like, Georgia is just clearly the better team. Now, does that matter at the end of the day? I mean, we're going to see on Saturday. We're going to see on Saturday. And Florida's been so up and down, y'all, this year that, if you get the Florida that played Tennessee, and they've really played well once this year, Florida. So that was the Tennessee game. I mean, they jumped them. They played well. Generally speaking, they got up. So they took a 26-7 lead into the half, and they only Tennessee scored a couple touchdowns, I think it was, in the second half, but Florida was just up on them so much, and one of the touchdowns was a junk touchdown at the end. They just, ETN hit him for a 62-yard touchdown. He can do that against Georgia. ETN is the problem. See, he's a real issue, and they've got a few playmakers, Florida, that maybe, Graham Mertz has been hitting a lot of balls. So, but there's no doubt that the best performance of the year was the win against Tennessee. However, lately, Florida's gotten it together on the offensive side of the ball even more. So, in their first few games of the year, they scored 11, 49 against a 1AA opponent. So they scored 11, 49, 29, 22 against Charlotte, 14 against Kentucky. So their first 5 games of the season, they did not score over 30 points, with the exception of their game against a 1AA school. Lately, against Vanderbilt and then Carolina, they've gone 38 and 41. So sort of which is it? I think it's probably more the first 5 games, but we don't know totally until, like, the way that Florida is having to close this season, you could see a real collapse. Like, Billy has done all he could to that win over South Carolina was huge for Florida. I mean, that was a consequential win. It was a big win the way they won it. I mean, there was all sorts of stuff in that win in Columbia that really mattered for South Carolina, for the Gators. I'm just going to tell you right. I mean, like, the way that they won that game, they scored 3 times in the final 4 minutes of the game to win that game. That is amazing. They were down 10 with 5 minutes to go. Like, it's not an okay loss if you're the Gators. So if you're the Cox, I should say. So Graham Mertz, touchdown on a 14-play drive. They drove the field twice, y'all. In a matter of 3 minutes, they drove the field for 75 yards. That's amazing. I don't even know what to say about that. They scored. I said they scored 3 times. That's an incorrect statement. They scored twice in the last 5 minutes. South Carolina scored because I think they took a safety at the end of the game, Florida, and it just didn't, so that it was a great win for Florida. Just, it was a back and forth game, but when you get up and you're up 10 with like 5-6 minutes to go in the game, you pretty much can't, you got to try to lose those games in a way. Like, it's really hard. What concerns me for the Gators is just the way that Spencer Rattler threw for 303 yards, 4 touchdowns on him. I mean, they really put up a lot of numbers on Florida in terms of offense. They really, really moved the ball on them. They wound up, let me get the number correct. They had 23 for down. Florida did the same thing to them. I mean, they really whenever you're scoring 80 points a game, that's a lot. But the amount of Carolina went up and down the field on them throwing it. Just everything. Florida gave up. Let me get the math exactly right here for y'all. And this is why they gave up 500 yards basically against South Carolina. Not equal, but I mean, they almost had 200 yards rushing. They gave up 200 to Georgia, 183. They gave up 200 to Georgia. They're leaving, and that's not gonna be a pretty game if that's what happens. That's not going to be a pretty game. That's going to be a blowout. And so I think, though, the thing that folks are forgetting is, if you lose this game, you do not have control over anything really at that point. because Florida will have control, and then we'll still have to deal with LSU and Missouri, and the East could become a real mess at that stage. I don't think that's what's going to happen. Let me just say that real quick. But that's the one thing people are forgetting about with this game. Florida wins it, they're in control.